Yes.
Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call to order our Finance Committee meeting for the budget. Clerk, if you could, please take a roll.
Councilman Ferry,
Present.
Councilwoman Jermaine. Present. Councilman Campiano,
Present.
Councilman Paplaskas, Council Vice President Vargas, Councilman Donegan,
Present.
Council President Marino. Present.
Before we begin, I would like to recognize former citywide and Ward 1 councilman and former Finance Committee Chair, Steve Stikos, who is here this evening. Welcome back. Before we begin, does anyone have any public comment?
I'd actually like to speak about the capital budget, and I know that's not on the agenda tonight. I have another meeting tomorrow night, and that's why I came tonight. I have a paper I'd like to hand out. Hi, Tony. Should be one for Rose, because I know you really want one. So what this sheet is the last 10 years, what the capital budgets have been. And I took those from the city budgets for those years. And that the columns don't line up too well, but we have the non-school capital spending, and then the school capital spending, and then the total, and then in the budget, the interest that is paid on the debt each year, and the principal. And my basic point is this, as it is proposed, is an enormous capital budget. And I would urge you to cut it, because we all know about interest rates now, that they're high. And you can see from this chart, just looking at the total column, that when Alan Fung was mayor, the capital budgets were between 10 and 20 million a year. And that was, year in and year out, pretty much. And what's being asked for this year is 67.9 million. Now, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is that there's a lot of school spending in the capital budget. And that's true if you go over to the school total and you see 47 million, which is a huge amount. But even in the non-school capital budget is double what the normal non-school budget is, non-school capital budget. So it's that, and I'm sure that the finance people here from the city can explain this better than I can, but just because you have a capital item in the budget this year, it isn't always reflected in this year's budget, because if the city goes out to bond, in other words, sells bonds, borrows money, that takes a while. So if they went out to bond in September, October, whatever, before their interest is actually being paid, it's towards the end of the fiscal year or not even in the fiscal year. So the large is 67 million, really almost 68 million in total capital spending that's being proposed. That's not going to show up as a interest and principal much until future years. And these bonds, this borrowing they're 20-year bonds. So that adds about, depending on the interest rate, it adds at least about a half again. So $100,000 project becomes $150,000 project when you add the interest into the cost. And I think that really what I would hope the city council would do is make some choices about what is important. We can't do everything all at once. And that's really what this capital budget, I think, tries to do. It's building a new school, very expensive, very important, but then it's fixing the pool, fixing the ice rink, building, putting AstroTurf on the Cranston West baseball field. There's even capital money to upgrade baseball fields, which I don't really think is a capital expense. It's something that rebuilding a pitcher's mound is not going to last 20 years. And I don't think we should be paying interest for 20 years to rebuild a pitcher's mound. Another item that I would just ask the council to look at, if you look at under the Public Works Department, there's citywide infrastructure, which it's a storm drains and paving streets, and it's $4 million. Most of the time when I was on the council, that was $1 million. And that was low, the Public Works Director said, but we got by with the 1 million, and then it jumped to 4 million. So I'd urge you to look at that as a possible cut. I think the the synthetic turf at the Cranston West baseball field. To me, the key question there is anybody else, are more kids going to play baseball because of that? Is it, and that ought to be the thing to judge in a expenditure like that. I think it's, and the other thing on the synthetic turf is that typically lasts 10 to 12 years. So you're going to be paying, the city's going to be paying, we're going to be paying bond money, interest on that for 20 years, but 10 or 12 years into the payment, we're going to have to pay interest again on 1.3 million. So that's I find a very questionable expenditure. Yeah, that's what that's really what I have to say. I think the numbers speak for themselves, and we just can't go spending $70 million, almost $70 million on capital expenditures that are not essential. And I think most of us would agree that the school is number one, and maybe the school committee needs to be talked to about if there's some things that could be toned down in their building, since I believe the Eden Park project was way over budget. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Stichels. Are there any other members of the public before we start that are here in person? We'll go back after each department, but before we begin, anyone online looking to speak right now?
I see no public comment.
Thank you. At this time, we will begin with public libraries. Good evening, Director Garsha.
Good evening, Councilman. I wanted to start briefly just by saying I wanted to thank the City Council for your continued support of the library. We've had a really successful 2022 moving into 2023. The library is at about 85% of our pre-pandemic usage of 2018. And once again, the Cranston Public Library was the highest circulating public library in Rhode Island last year, with over 640,000 items loaned out to library users. As we move into the spring and into the summer, we're getting ready for the summer reading program, which is our largest program we do all year. And I would invite each council member to visit one of our 6 Cranston Public Library locations and just to see what activity is going on. I wanted to say the library administration has been working very hard with my colleagues around the state to achieve full funding of state aid to libraries, which we have done this year. With the council's help, the council passed a resolution asking the General Assembly to fully fund state aid last year. We have achieved that full funding in the governor's budget this year for the first time since 2009. And that's an increase of $98,000 in this budget year for the library. I also want to say during this budget process, the administration has been very supportive of the library, and you'll see an additional $34,000 in the city appropriation to the library represented in this budget. Myself and the Board of Trustees understand the financial considerations that are going on in the city, and although we could always use more money, the additional funding that was put in by the administration is the full amount that was requested by the Board of Trustees in this budget. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director. I'll start with 2 and then open it up to anyone else that has any other questions. The first is line item 56008, operation of libraries. That line item is staying the same at $198,000. The question I have is, if we look at the current fiscal year, it's running at close to 280,000, which is 81,000 over budget. So I'm wondering why so far over budget, and is an increase necessary for the next year?
So no, the increase is not necessary. And the reason why that is over budget is later in the last fiscal year, this fiscal year, I should say, the state passed their budget in the end of June, and they actually included some of the additional state aid I mentioned. But that was after the city had already passed the budget. So typically this has happened to us maybe twice in the last 10 years where we got additional money from the state after the budget was passed. So at the time, the finance department at the time, we put that in revenue and we dropped it into a few line items. So there was spending that down, but mostly on one-time expenses, building costs, as well as there was an increase that we will be able to absorb into the current line item for our building insurance and a few other items.
The next question is 56002 books and care. That's going up $5,000 to what, 140,000?
Yes.
Annualized for this year, it's at 146 and the 5-year average is 148. So it I think you had mentioned you got everything you wanted. So are you happy with the 140? Is anything additional required or?
Nope. The only reason those line items have been a little higher over the last couple of years is during the pandemic, we weren't able to spend down certain line items because of staffing levels, our part-time line, et cetera. So we ended up moving that in the books. We could always use more money for books. I'm not going to say that, we couldn't, but we're happy with the 140 that's in this line item in this budget.
On the note of not being able to spend some down during the pandemic, what is the current reserve account running at?
The current reserve account is approximately $215,000, but we do have a couple of approved projects that are in process right now that the trustees have approved. We're doing I'm going to say, renovation is probably too strong of a word, but in our reference adult services staff, we're replacing everything in their office, all their desks and everything. They're actually, we're all original to the building, so over 30 plus years old. And we're in year 8 of a 10-year ordinance that was passed to upgrade all the city fire alarm boxes to the new radio boxes. So we've approved approximately $40,000 to move to replace all the library fire boxes this fiscal year using some of the reserves. So that's in process now, working with Deputy Chief DeSorcy to get that finished by June.
After those projects are complete, where do you think it will stand?
Probably a little about, let's see, that's doing quick math in my head. That's about $60,000. So 140. Yeah, 155.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate it. And as always, appreciate everything you and the libraries do here in Cranston, and always appreciate the annual report that we all receive. Are there any questions from any members of the body? Council Auditor.
Director, thank you very much for everything. You made a statement that there was some additional money that was funded after the budget had closed for 2023. Can you tell me how much that was above the roughly 700,000 that you received?
Yes, I believe that was approximately 82,000.
On another note, with the fireboxes going in, that's a safety protocol and it is a public library. Isn't there funding from the state or grant money that you could be reimbursed?
Not that I'm aware of. This is an ordinance that was passed 8 years ago that all city buildings should be upgraded by in a 10-year timeframe. So I've been working with Chief Warren and Deputy Chief DeSorcy, and there was, as far as I'm aware, there was no state money available for this project. So we took it upon ourselves to work it out from our reserve fund.
And only one more question. Obviously, because you kind of fall into the same maintenance of effort, at the end of this budgetary period, how much do you think will be remaining in your budget that we put into the reserve fund?
This year, I would approximate less than $10,000.
Thank you very much.
Actually, now that I think about it, it might not even be $10,000. It's going to be pretty close to that number, but the reason I'll just add that we typically have a small amount that we keep just in case things get accrued into fiscal years. So this year, actually, there was an extra pay period for health coverage that we had not forecasted at the beginning of the year. So that's probably going to eat up the rest of that surplus to cover that.
And actually, one other question, your salaries are going up 102,000. Is that contractual obligations?
It is, except that it is not, the 102,000 number, it actually is a number that spans 2 fiscal years. Last year, there was some incorrect information in our salary schedule that was accounted for with step increases. So in that fiscal year, we covered that those funds, which is approximately $34,000 out of our reserve fund. So this year, that money is in there, as well as an additional amount for contractual obligations for our union.
So a portion of that's back pay?
It was paid. It just was not reflected in the budget last year. Yeah, the money was, it's not back pay, it just was never reflected in the budget as an accurate number last year,
You said that was about 34,000.
34,000.
Council President Marino.
Thank you. Director, I don't have any questions for you this evening. I just wanted to say thank you for running a fabulous library system. Thank you to the Board of Trustees for volunteering their time to keep everything in line. And I really can't commend the respect I have for the libraries in Cranston, from when my children were young to older in age to seniors, my family utilizing services that you guys have. Incorporate the arts programs to into the libraries and the schools. And I appreciate everything that you do. Thanks.
Thank you, Council President. I really appreciate that sentiment. I get to be the one that gets to be before you and hear these thanks, but it's my team at the library that does the share of the hard work with the public. So I will let them know your comments tonight. Thank you.
Councilwoman. Councilwoman Jermaine.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director, for being here again this evening. I echo the sentiment of President Marino. So I think the Cranston Library did an amazing job. So everybody should recognize that. My kids really enjoy going there. It's always a pleasure for the resources. So I see, you mentioned for books and care. So that's mean you really don't need more books. Is that correct?
No, so thank you for your comments. We could always use more money to buy more books. But I think that the number that we have in this budget that we arrived at with the administration is a good number that we can work with.
Okay, thank you. But I have only one question. I see a little increasing in the salary schedule for 24. Would you mind explaining a little bit the increase?
Yes, I was, so the increase in the salary schedule, I was explaining that the Auditor DeMayo was, there was some information in last year's budget in the salary schedule that did not reflect some of the salary step increases for my staff. So that money was paid, and we paid it out of the library reserve fund. So part of this increase, $34,000 of it, reflects that money being actually represented in the budget, and the remainder of it is a contractual obligation that we have in there as well. Okay. Yes. No, I think the number for fiscal 23 was understated, and this number is accurate.
Okay, so it's just from last 23. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. No, no more question.
Budget Auditor.
Just one last question. I know that I believe 2 years ago, you received $250,000 in a grant funded to the library. Am I correct?
I'm not sure if I know what you're referring to.
I believe prior to the change in grant writers, just before the end of the year, there was a $250,000 grant that came to the library?
Oh, you're talking about the Jerry Klein Community Impact Prize. So that was a prize award. It came to the Cranston Public Library Association, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that exists outside of the library, that they raise money to support the library. The Friends of the Library is part of that group. So that money is at the association, and they're spending it on additional. They haven't spent it all at once, but they've been spending it a little bit each year to help support programs. Most of the programs that we have at the library, including the summer reading program, we do not have the money in our operational budget for. So we raise the money every year through fundraising and small grants. So that's what that money is being used for slowly over time.
Is it restricted just to programs for
It is-
residents, or is it anything that you may propose that could be awarded to the library to help support the operations?
There's no restriction on that money, but with the mission of the Cranston Public Library Association is to support the library with funding additional to any funding that comes from the city and state through appropriation. So it's up to the board of directors of the CPLA where and how they want to spend those funds.
And just out of curiosity, would you happen to know how much is left?
I believe right now, probably about $180,000. I'm sorry, $180,000.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Renzo.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. I can attest to the wonderful services at the libraries. My twins love going there every weekend, so I want to thank you for that. But my question is, this extra $10,000 for the online resources that I see from 23 to 24, can you just tell me what that is? What new resources we're getting?
Yes, first off, thank you for your comments. Glad that your kids love coming to the library. We added a couple of resources last year, one of which is Consumer Reports. If you're familiar with that magazine, they have an online version, and we added that last year, or actually I should say this fiscal year. And that takes up probably half of that 10,000. It's been so the way that works is you can go in and research in Consumer Reports any issue that they've ever printed. So new stuff and older things. They actually don't certain things they don't publish very often. So they might have like the best refrigerator list every like 4 years, for example. So that was a service that we had gotten a lot of requests for. So we added that. And the rest of it, we hope to just spend on additional ebooks and digital audiobooks. Those are becoming increasingly popular. This last fiscal year, we circulated over 100,000 digital items. First time that we've been over 100,000 since we started offering those 9 years ago. So that's what the additional funding would be used for.
Okay, great. Thank you. There's just an additional question I have is about the revenues. What typically drives the revenue at the library? Because I see in the actuals in 2018, 95,000, 2019, 75,000, and then obviously 2020 was a pandemic, 2021, and then where it's continued to be about 41,500 going forward. So I'm just curious, I see it says miscellaneous, lost materials, E-rate. Does that include room rental? What is driving the revenues and what can we do
So
to help drive revenue?
yeah, the reason why that you've seen a continual rapid decrease over the years is because when we started going fine free, we had a revenue line for fines. And when we first proposed going fine free for children's and teen materials, Mayor Fung added $20,000 into our revenue line to cover the lost revenue, and then the council approved that. And then the same thing when we went completely fine free, we backed that out of our revenue. That was the prime mover of that revenue. So currently, the revenues are lost materials, room rentals. We have copy machines that we charge for. So that's like the miscellaneous stuff. Miscellaneous is mostly the room rental, that kind of thing. Photocopiers, printing costs. So we will charge people to print, paper. So the 41.5 number has been there for, I think, at least 2 years, maybe 3. And we've been consistently hitting that, and that's a kind of a realistic number for us, knowing that our revenue for fines has been decreased to only a couple of thousand at this point, because we still have fines on a few items that are mostly tools and technology that we loan out. So that's where that number is derived from. And again, the big driver had been fines. But we decided to remove those over the last 5 or 6 years because we saw that there was a barrier to a lot of families using the library. When we had gone, I want to say it was 2016, we had done a challenge called, maybe it was 2015, the Library Leader Challenge. Then President Obama had wanted to get a library card in the hands of every student. So Mayor Fung and Superintendent Nodamasi and myself took the challenge, and we actually got really close to getting a card in every student's hand at that point. But we noticed that there was at least 2,200 students that cards were blocked because their family couldn't afford the fine. And we felt that having that revenue based on someone's bad behavior, we would really rather have the family be able to use the library was more important than having that increased revenue.
Excellent. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. And I love you adding new programs all the time to the library. It's great. We're looking forward to the summer reading program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Director. Seeing no other questions from the committee, are there any members of the public with any comment on the public libraries? Seeing none in person, are there any members of the public that have any comment online?
There is no public comment.
All right, thank you, Director.
Thank you very much.
The next group will be Group 1110, Vision of Economic Development. Do see Director Paulino here this evening. Director, welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Member of the council, Franklin Polino, Director of Economic Development for the city of Cranston. Just to give you a little brief on the mission of the Division of Economic Development is to enhance the city of Cranston quality of the throughout the creation and preservation of healthy business. Currently, we only have one staff, which is myself. We did have an aide, Marsha, and she retired. So it's just myself in my office. The salary schedule, we saw a reduction of almost 56%. The overtime, it'll be half. The payroll tax, it'll be for one person, and the pension contribution and the hospitalization. What we do have is office supplies expense and the dues from the Rotary Club and the chambers, and for marketing and program activities.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for everything that you do to help spur economic growth here in the city. See you all the time on social media, at ribbon cuttings and whatnot, and it's always appreciated. One question I have is kind of a general question. I don't know if it would fall under line item 52753. It is, we are now in the second year of the partnership with the Providence Warwick Visitors Convention Bureau.
Yes.
That was a $10,000 agreement, and I'm just wondering where in the department's budget that money is to continue that partnership.
Yeah. Oh, yes. We did have an agreement. And I was requesting on the marketing side, $10,000 for that. I don't know if we put it in there, but that was in the agreement that we was. And it will
If I
come-
might add to
oh,
that, there was discussion for consideration to use ARPA funds for that, you might recall.
Is that in the budget though? Or
we-
It is not in this budget, but it would be as pretty much agreed, the mayor would propose spending that $10,000 of ARPA funds to the council. And that, when they signed it up, that was what the discussion was about. So that's why it doesn't appear as a line item here.
All right. Does anyone else have any other questions? The only, Director, though, I'll connect with you about that
Mhm.
at another time. Council President Marino.
Thank you. Good evening, Director Paulino.
Yes.
I had a question for you with respect to the salary schedule. I understand that Marcia retired. But my question is, line item 51104 for expenditures is a differential of $6,000. I'm just wondering why that is.
I did ask for a salary increase on that differential. I believe that's
What it was actually, Director Paulino requested to fill that position of the retirement. The mayor did not see fit, given the austerity budget that's being presented. So that would represent a differential aid to the, pardon me, the communications coordinator to assist Director Paulino and all of his efforts, and think that would be cheaper than hiring a part-time person or another employee.
All right, so just so I fully understand, what you're saying is that the differential that you're proposing for 2024 budget for $6,000, and my page is cut off and 50-something dollars, that's to pay in addition to the salary of the communications coordinator in the executive department, for him to work extra hours to earn that 6,000, or is it just an increase in his salary where he has two
Mostly-
different titles?
Mostly extra hours, certainly assisting double duty, lunch hours, that type of thing, to make himself available to Director Paulino.
And then my other question is with respect to ribbon cuttings, what are the expenses incurred with ribbon cuttings, and which expenditure item number does that fall under?
that will be under program activities. And those are mostly buying the ribbons and scissor, well, one, and just doing the ribbon cutting and paperwork on the office.
And so the only expenses for the ribbon cutting is the purchasing of the scissor and the ribbon?
Yeah, the ribbon, most of the ribbon, but that's not much there on the.
What kind of paperwork is involved with the ribbon cutting ceremonies? Is it notification in there?
Notification with the communication director and sending and visiting. That's about it on the ribbon cutting.
When Marcia was here, before she retired, all council members would receive notice of the ribbon cuttings. That has since stopped. Is there a particular reason why that stopped?
Well, it's just myself right now. And when we do the ribbon cutting, it'll probably be up to the business owner to invite, the council. I do send, if it's in that particular ward, I will send it to the council person of the citywide. So.
That hasn't been happening. That's why I was wondering what the expenses were incurred with the notification, because council members have not been notified.
Yeah.
We had a meeting the other day,
Mhm.
whereas we discussed this, that for these ribbon cutting, reopenings, where they are, the director or Zach would speak with the business owner to ask them if they would like to invite the council people, whatever people they would like represented. They call the mayor's office and invite the mayor. And we figured we should not be in the position to invite people to crash somebody else's party. But Director Paulino is instructed, along with Zach, to convey the wishes of the council, to have them, if they wish to be invited, to get their approval before they take the liberty of doing so. But I just want to make sure it's cleared by the business owner.
Okay, so all of a sudden, what we've been doing for the past over 2 years, all of a sudden has changed because there's a sensitivity to the business owner and you don't want council members to appear and crash them?
If
I
I
can't- I
understand you
can't-
correctly?
Kind of. I can't speak to what Marcia did or didn't do, frankly. As to all ribbon cuttings and all, I'm not quite sure. But I think just social or common etiquette would be is if any council person has a wedding, that they would ask someone if, can that person come to the wedding versus inviting that person. So it's a similar kind of more of a business etiquette to ask the council, ask the business owner if they would, encouraging them to invite the council persons, but leave it up to them because thinking it would be inappropriate to take that liberty with, against their wishes.
And so just so I understand, that's actually been occurring where there's been specific communication with the business owners asking them who they would like to attend. Am I understanding you correct?
This issue's come up because there's been complaints that some council people weren't invited. So we had a discussion last week. What is the
I'm sorry,
appropriate
Director, I'm
thing
gonna
to
interrupt
do?
you. That wasn't my question and I
What was
wasn't
the
one that
question, please?
complained.
I didn't
My question
understand.
is, I just want to make sure I have my facts correct. You stated that the notification process has changed since Marcia left. And if I understand you correctly, you said that the administration has taken on as proper business etiquette that you are asking the business owners when they're doing a ribbon cutting or reopening of some kind where economic development is presenting and traditionally council members had been asked to go. You are specifically having some type of email communication or conversation with those business owners, asking them if in fact they want other council members to attend. It's just a simple yes or no if I understood you correct, because that's what you said.
Your statement was, I can't answer your question because you've told me that it changed from what Marcia did. I'm saying I cannot tell you what Marcia did versus now. I can only tell you what we're doing now is that we are encouraging the business owner to invite whatever council people they like, whether it's for Mr. Paulino's department to get back to council people or for them if they wish to contact this council people themselves. I think it's kind of just common courtesy, but yes, guilty of asking the business owner permission first. Yes.
But that's unique to Cranston because other cities and towns don't behave that way. But
Mhm.
as long as I
I'm not
understand
sure what the
fully,
other
I'm
cities
still
and towns
speaking,
are-
Director Moretti.
Pardon me.
I'm still speaking. That's unique to Cranston and it's unique to us in the last year. That's not how it had been done previously. I'm sure Director Paulino, you were there and you know what Marcia did. She was part of your department and that was in fact the case before. So we can all attest to that. But as long as I'm sure I understand now what the expense is for and what the wish is for a differential for the communications director to assist in that regard.
It's
I
not-
understand.
It's not just ribbon cuttings, but any assistance he could lend to the department.
Thank you. I'm all set for now. Thank you.
Councilman Ferry.
Well, my question was going to be to Director Paulino as to what the procedure was to invite the council people to the ribbon cuttings, because I haven't been invited to one in at least 8 months that I can think of. Okay. And I refuse to believe that the business owners do not want the council people to be at their ribbon cuttings. Whether you say that's the fact or not, I have a problem believing it. So I would like to see if in fact you are asking the business owners to invite the council. You could send them all our email addresses and say, I'm sure some of them, if they have the time, would like to make it. And then therefore it could be fair that everyone that wants to go and has the time to go could attend a ribbon cutting in the city to help with economic development within the city, because we are a council and we're supposed to be working together. And this is supposed to be something that you tell us that we're all going to work together on. But I refuse to believe that business owners do not want us at their ribbon cuttings. And let's just not be petty about this. That's all I have to say. And I don't want to continue this conversation. Thank you.
That's why we had the meeting last week. We heard concerns of the council. We wanted to make sure we were covering that.
Councilwoman
In
Tremaine.
this same subject, it just make me laugh to hear. What it is, it's just, you want certain council to be there, certain not, those just what it is. Okay, I would say the way it is, because right here in my ward has been a lot of ribbon cutting and I saw them. I never been invited, not once, since I don't know when.
Mhm.
And how, I would like to know how to really talk to the business owner to say, hey, do you want council and his gentleman to come to your, oh, he will crash your party. Or council Pompopiano, he will crash your party.
I have to, I
I-
apologize, Council.
No,
No.
no, that's,
I've been, the city solicitor just, told me that the conversation has not specific to you, to what you're saying, but has strayed away from the budget and we need to get back on track. If we
I
want,
agree.
so I
Mhm.
apologize.
So,
It- I'm
yeah,
not,
you are right, but I couldn't let that go. So sorry. My question, Dr. Paulino. I know there is overtime in every department. And as a director, as any other director, why you never work over hour or you are not, or you don't feel like you deserve to pay overtime? Or your, I would like to know your position as a director. So even though you work overtime, you are not deserving of that.
Yeah,
That's
well,
like my question.
I see this, me coming here at this time should be considered overtime. That's one
Do you
part of,
deserve to pay overtime?
if it's included in my
Yes
salary.
or no?
Yes, yes, I should
Yes, you
be,
deserve it,
yes, I do.
right?
Yes.
Why there's nothing for overtime for you since there was a vacant and you do the same job this person have been doing? Why you don't deserve it? Why is not there?
There's a line there for 500,
I don't see
no?
where.
I-
Overtime, 500, you,
Mr.
do you get
Chairman-
paid
Mr.
overtime?
Chairman, if I could answer that question.
Director Moretti.
Mr. Director Paulino falls within the admin's structure.
Uh-huh.
And we're not allowed to pay overtime to admin personnel. They're granted comp time. So Director Paulino is being paid this evening for compensation time for
Okay.
being here.
So since the retirement of Marsha, so those extra work he has been doing, does he get paid for that?
He does not, nor does anyone else in the admin package get paid over monetary dollars for overtime. It would be compensation time.
Okay, thank you. So my question I had about the differentials, President Marino asked this question, so I am, for now, even though I don't want to stay over. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? See, Councilwoman Ronzulli.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, this differential that will go to the communications person, what exactly is it, that they're going to do? Will they perhaps set a calendar to appease the council to know when different events are to go? Is that something that could maybe solve this problem?
Yes, well, the differential on SAC-A, it'll be also to help me with the revolving loan. He does, when we have the meeting, he does take the minutes. And also he assists me when we go out on the Take It Outside program. He's with me there, helping me, assisting me on that also.
Director Polino, I know that, there are a variety of grants through Commerce that don't essentially flow through the city, but in speaking to people at the Commerce Department, they have said that you are a big promoter of those grants to help the businesses in Cranston, even though the money is coming from Rhode Island Commerce. I think that's very important. Will Zach be able to help you with that? Because I don't know how you can be, no matter how much money you are paid, you can't be in the office and be out visiting businesses. So I just want to ensure that you're getting the support that you need to do your job effectively.
Yes, Zach has been helping us. Also, he's a journalist. So we are working close with Lisa Androsia on the grant writing. So far, we put in 3 grants for the city. And we're looking at the new program that's coming out for the state, which is the ventilation program. And the third round of the Take It Outside, which we applied for $250,000 to the city.
Excellent. And the point that Councilman Donegan brought up about the Go Providence, if they are funded through ARPA, I assume will someone still report to you? Because in the last year, the first time that we spoke to that association was like in the last month when they came here. We didn't even, I don't think any of us knew there was a Go Cranston website. They were doing some kind of pizza week, and I know Councilwoman Jermaine was very interested in it. They have a lot of good programs, but we're not getting that communication directly. And it's no fault of your own. I just don't know where they're going to report to, especially if they're not coming out of your budget.
Yes, I will try to work on the grant for the tourism, and see if there are grants out there for the proposal.
That wasn't really my question. My question was, if we get the money funded through ARPA for Go Providence, will they report to economic development what they're doing, even though it's ARPA money, it's not coming out of the economic development budget?
Yeah, yes, they will report to me, and I work close with Mr. Donovan on that project. So they will be reporting to me, and I will be reporting to the council on that matter.
And just to the point of the ribbon cuttings, Director Paulino, if someone brings a ribbon cutting to you, does that ever happen? Do council people say, hey, there's a business opening, here's the contact information? Is that why they could perhaps know about the ribbon cutting that no one else knows about?
Yes, as you know, from the council person from that ward, if there's a business opening there, they will go to that council person and they'll contact me and we set it up. On the ribbon cutting, just to get it, I'm more than willing to notify all the council person. I know Marsha was doing the ribbon cutting. She had it down and she would do the whole thing. But I am willing to, every time that we have a council person, if I will invite, try to, but it's a lot of work putting together the ribbon cutting and making sure that the mayor attends and making sure the council person attend because it's during the day. A lot of the ribbon cutting we are doing is during the week from 10 to 3 o'clock. And, I do invite, the council person if they can attend. I have no issue with that.
Thank you.
Council President Marino.
Just again, because facts are important to me. I understand the current communications coordinator or communications director, whatever his title is, in the executive office. He has already been assisting your department, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is not anything new. It's just a continuation of what's already been happening, correct? Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
Are there any other comments from the committee? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public in person? Seeing none, are there any comments online?
There is no public comment.
At this time, we will move on to the, thank you, Director Paulino. At this time, we will move on to the, that is Department.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have one more question for you. Do you think having a part-time is not necessary? It's okay? Or do you feel like you should have someone helping you?
Ye-
Or like a part-time person? Is that necessary or not?
Yes, I need a part-time or an aide to assist me. I cannot run this department by myself.
Did you request that in this?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what was the answer?
The answer is Zach DeLuke will make himself available as necessary. And we'll see how that works. Again, we're trying to watch city dollars and we think we can get by this way. As I said before, every department can create very sound rationale for more personnel. It's at what point do we have to get by? As the mayor said, I think in his speech, we have to do more with less. And here's a perfect example.
I like to hear that. Thank you. More with less. All right.
Okay, we're gonna move on to Department 1101 Executive.
Thank you.
Just on this department, we're requesting a 2/3 of 1% increase to the department. And pardon me, I'm getting over a cold. And as you can see, what we're doing, other departments, we're kind of taking a little haircut as where we possibly can and trimming the department as in terms of, some of the spending, like the office supplies and the public observances, et cetera, as we're doing with every department in the city. And that's why we're putting it for a 0.66% increase.
Does anyone have any questions? Budget order and then council.
I just have one simple question from my own knowledge. How's the Rhode Island dues for cities and towns calculated?
Fundamentally on population, which we have a problem with. Cranston is one of the larger communities, so we get hit pretty well.
So it's just basically on total residents?
I never audited their calculation, but that's what we were told from them. So we challenged that.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Councilman Ferry.
Well, welcome, Director. I'm looking at page 30 in the budget here, and I just have a couple of quick questions for you. You are obviously the chief of staff, correct?
At this time,
$95,172. That is you, okay?
that is me.
And the deputy chief of staff, would that be Paul McCauley?
Yes, it is.
Could you please explain to me exactly what the deputy chief of staff does for $70,971?
There is a job description for him. Top of my head is about a third, whereas to provide assistance to me as the role of chief of staff to handle projects or assignments. Another third is assist in constituent affairs, because we only have one person there and some of the issues can get deeper into the departments and obviously the council people requests and certainly the constituents. And thirdly is assist with the mayor's schedule and be the advanced person for the mayor. There's more to it, but I guess that would be a quick synopsis as the fundamental role.
Okay, about 3 months ago, we had received literature that the deputy chief of staff was going to change his position and become the director of senior services, and that the director of senior services was going to become the deputy chief of staff. What derailed that?
The deputy chief of staff changed his mind. Not desirable of it, so we didn't force it on him.
Okay, and to your
Just-
knowledge,
Just want to note, we do need to keep it to the budget.
okay, we'll keep it to the budget. And the director of constituent affairs is Gina Capuano,
Correct.
50, all right. Communications director is a new position. You have a new hire at that $47,000 salary.
We refer to as the old PIVA,
Okay.
if you will.
And then the confidential assistant to the mayor and the administrative assistant. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilwoman Rizuli.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Since we are on page 30, I'll ask questions from there. So is there a confidential assistant to the mayor now, or does the communications person become the confidential assistant to the mayor at some point in time?
We have held off on that resource as long as we could. Was filled, but right now it looks as if we need to fill it, given workload demand.
So it'll currently it'll stay vacant to save money right now?
Until we're stretched, but we feel like we're getting to that point. We do feel as we're at that point, and that person could also help as a utility person, as you hear, or every department is being stretched. And that's another part of why we feel it's feeling is the right thing to do.
Okay. And then the administrative assistant is essentially the office assistant for the whole office, that's Zeta McCauley, correct?
Yes, I think the olden days, would just be working for one person type thing. It's more all hands on deck, the way that things are run now.
Okay. And could you tell us who the liaison to the council is? Is that you? Because you're always here. Thank you. But is it supposed to be you? Because we were, one of these positions were going to be the liaison to the council, and I just want to make sure that we're not directing our needs to the wrong person and overdoing it.
Yes, I would be the primary contact. Certainly, as you know, Steve Craddock is actually coming in a couple of days a week to help us out so he would be a key person too. So myself or Steve, certainly I would, depends on the complexity of the issue, how pervasive it might be into the departments. If you really need special attention, certainly I encourage you to contact me.
But where do you want us to contact generally, so that as you have the most important position in this office, I would say, like outside of the mayor, to make sure everything is running smoothly. So if the council is constantly coming to you, is there
Yeah.
a better person to go to?
What I would do, I think kind of past history, whereas you have the potholes, you have the street signs, you have those things that can easily be handled. You could either be Gina or Steve. But if there's more complex issues, I welcome you to tap me.
Okay, and I'm just gonna ask, because I feel like it's gonna come next. Where does Mr. Craddock fit into this budget?
He's as budgeted in the senior center, senior center admin.
Okay, thank you.
Director, I've got an ask an honest question, follow up to that. Mr. Craddock is great. In my experiences working with him. I'm gonna say it bluntly, how the heck is he the senior services director and assisting in the mayor's department?
Yeah, what he's done, at the senior center, he does a fair amount of work. He would be in his office, at his desk. So he's using a lot of his desk time, if you will, where he's been at the senior center and coming over. We see this as a temporary thing, frankly, but yeah, he's stretched a bit. And he's there just about every day, but he does come over to help us out. But as I said, he's doing a lot of his emails, correspondence and administrative things at a desk in the mayor's office. So he has kind of two desks. But long term, is it sustainable? Probably not. And that's one of the reasons why I think we need to fill that other position, because it's to get better uniformity and cadence in the office.
Council President Marino.
Thank you, Director Moretti. I had a question about the vacant position, because you guys are including in the 2024 budget, the confidential assistant. So that's the $47,627. You are looking to fill that position at some time?
Yes, for most of the reasons we pretty much touched upon.
And then my other question is, I don't see it listed here in the executive budget itemized. So if you could tell me where the vehicle expenses are and the gas, including the vehicles themselves, how many, and the gas charges associated with the vehicles utilized by the executive office.
I'd have to.
Madam Council President, the gas charges are for all other departments are centrally located. And I'll get you the account, but the police and fire have exclusive accounts. I want to say the residual ones are charged to the DPW. highway account, but I'll get you a firm answer, ma'am.
Okay, and that would be for the vehicles themselves too, if there are any charges for any vehicles?
Through the, Madam, Council President, yes, that would be, analogous to, the repairs for other admin vehicles.
Okay, all right. Yeah, if you can get me that department number, that'd be great, because I know with it not being listed here, it has to be accounted for somewhere, and I didn't want to make assumptions as to it being included in the DPW, like highway fleet department, whatever it's called. So if you can let me know, that'd be great. Thank you. I'm all set.
There any other questions from the committee? Councilwoman Jermaine?
Thank you. My question is about the communication coordinator. Is that position that was filled by, Steve Piper position? Is that person also oversees the IT, everything in technology, those kind of things, the website?
From the website, but not the hardcore IT department, but the website postings, that type of thing. But
So what really, okay, I know press release, okay, beside press release and in the note, what other type of communication this person do?
it echoed, I'm sorry, what was the question?
So besides press release, notes, what type of other communication that person do?
Yep, he handles, I'll say, keeping us informed of what's going on legislatively with the state. Some liaison, with other communities. Again, people wear various hats. And so if you need him to, there's an issue to maybe call another mayor's office or town manager. But, keep us up to abreast of, current legislation, cities and towns communication that he'll review and kind of focus in on the issues pertaining to Cranston, things like that.
So, you think he has a lot to really fulfill, the full-time job, and then he can do the overtime for the, economic development?
Yeah, I gotta say, he's an extremely talented guy. And he's doing,
No, I'm not questioning his talent.
Yeah,
That's
no,
not
he's-
the question.
he's
That's not the
he's got that,
question.
he's got that can-do attitude and willing to put the time in, and he's dedicated to the job. So to answer your question, yes.
No, the question is that if he have enough time to fulfill his duty as a communication director and then have to work overtime for the
Yeah.
economic development? That's my question.
Yep, he does. The answer is yes. He does a great job. He's efficient. And that's the reason why we're able to utilize him both in the mayor's office and helping out Mr. Paulino.
Thank you.
There any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public in person? Are there any comments online?
There's no public comment.
All right, at this time, we will move on to group 1103, Department of Law. Solicitor Malay, welcome. Good evening. The solicitor, the one question I have is regarding outside legal services, line 52313. I know that, from day one, you've said that a priority or emphasis on doing as much in-house as possible to try and reduce the outside fees, and it's reflected in the current fiscal year's projection at, 373,000. Next year is budgeted, I think, for 400,000. Do you think that is it possible to reduce that down more?
It is, Thank you, Mr. Lima. It is the equivalent of looking through a crystal ball. Unfortunately, my department, unlike any other department in the city, I don't know where anything is gonna be tomorrow. Based on the fact that the city is self-insured. And that everything regarding legal representation, and I'll leave it as basic as that, comes through the department. So if we have a quiet 6 months, obviously the number can go down. That number could jump up as a result of a car accident that might happen 5 minutes from now. So I'm doing my best to keep stuff in-house, as I said I would last year, and I am trying to keep that number down. I'm relying on for lack of a better term, in-house solicitors and assigning them work that maybe in years past they've gone to outside legal counsel. But again, I'm doing my best to keep it within that budget, and I hope I do, but I hope that answers your question.
Do any members of the committee have any questions? Council President.
Thank you. A good evening, Solicitor Malay. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Madam President.
I just had some questions with respect to the number of solicitors, just so we're on the same page, as you call them, your in-house solicitors, for lack of a better term, I believe is what you said. How many do we currently have?
So if I can just go quiet for 1 second so I can count on my fingers, please. I have myself and 4 others right now. Everybody is just to clarify, everyone's considered part-time, but those are people that are paid a fixed stipend by the city.
And in previous budgets, we received the itemization of the stipend. So if you can, or Director Zadelis can supplement that to us and provide that with us later on, we'd appreciate it with respect to the in-house solicitors. My other question is, while Councilman Donegan addressed the outside legal services portion, I also know from past discussion that with other department heads as well, that there are legal expenses that are incurred with various departments in the city. Do you know specifically which departments are utilizing other legal services?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, Council President. In other words, are there departments that don't use my legal services? Is that?
For budget purposes,
Yes.
as an actual line item and an expenditure for each department. In the legal department for you, obviously, we have the outside legal service fees. And for example, claims or the tax assessors or tax collection, they have an individual expenditure for legal fees. And so my point is, or my question is, how many other departments besides just the law department has an expenditure for legal services?
I got you. The only 2 departments I'm aware of are what you've just outlined, which is claims and tax purposes. They don't come through. Is there? Library. Apparently, I've been informed the library has someone as well. They do contact me. Mr. Garcia does contact me for legal advice a lot, but if he has someone that he uses outside, I'm unaware of that. But those are the claims, and the tax issues are separate and apart from the law department. There's no doubt about it.
All right, I don't have any other questions right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam President.
Are there any other questions? Councilwoman Renzulli.
Thank you. To Council President Marino's point, where would we find those? Under departmental expenses in various departments?
Where
Is
would
it
I
just
find
kind of
it?
lumped in there? This might be a question for,
I'm sorry,
Director
the
Zadelis.
different departments, you mean? They're within their own budget. So if there's legal expenses that are incurred with, for instance, the library, that's within the library's budget. It doesn't fall within my budget.
Okay, I think that's like what I'm saying, basically. We don't know how much it is because it's not in your budget. So is it just, I just am wondering if it's under departmental expenses and it's lumped into departmental expenses, or if there's, should be separate lines that say legal within a department that is separate from your department.
If I just may answer that, as the council president, stated, speaking specifically to last week, that being treasury, it was classified, I think, as personal services, professional services. Thank you, council president. So, generally, it's in that type of, I'll call it an object code, the 5-digit number, the expense number that starts with the 5, that's where you'll see it. But it's generally, it's not like the solicitor's account where he has one that specifically says outside legal services. It's a very similar descriptive title in departmental budgets, primarily the treasurer's office, and a very similar one in the library.
Okay, thank you. And I would just say back to the solicitor's budget. These fees are, the outside legal services has gone down significantly from 2018 to now. Would you say that that is simply from using your in-house counsels more often?
I can say that's what I have been trying to do. I can't speak, I won't speak for the prior administration and how they handled some of the outside legal claims. But I've been trying to lean on the firms, the lawyers, if you will. Some are individual, some are part of firms that are part of the stipend of the within the budget. In other words, I have flat fees that I'm trying to lean on those individuals to do work rather than send it outside and have it go up on an hourly basis. Sometimes those hourly bases, as members can know, can run up to $350 to $400 per hour. So I'm doing what I can to keep that in-house when I can.
And as far as settlements, there's nothing budgeted for settlements. So if a settlement were needed to be had,
Kind of goes into claims, and I can let Mr. Zazelis talk about that. Unfortunately, that's a line item that I think would probably be best be updated, if you will, for the term of the budget, because it indicates settlements, but the reality is it kind of goes through claims and it goes through a different department. So I can have Mr. Zadelis speak to that.
Yeah, that's the next item on the.
And it's coming up on the next discussion.
oh, I have one more question. Your administrative legal expenses look like the ask is going down as well. Can you please speak to that and what that entails?
So that kind of covers a little bit of everything. It can legally, it can go from office supplies, which as you can see can be zero, but I can actually use legal expense for pads, papers, and letterhead. I have not, but I have been invited to, if you will, different seminars that I have not yet gone to, but that could fall under that. But in my 2.5 years of being here within the city, I haven't used that. And Mr. Zadelis wants to speak, so.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, Counselor, in terms of recognizing the expenditures year to date, and as the esteemed Counselor Malaya said, he's been very conservative on his expenditures, recognizing where they were through the course of this fiscal year, that also recognizing the good work he's done, that precipitated the reduction from the year to year, that being the year-to-date expenditure in FY23.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Council Budget Auditor DeMayo.
Just as a point of information, in the library's budget, there is a line 51306 that says legal services fund.
All right. Seeing no other questions on the Councilwoman Jermaine.
Thank you. My question, thank you, Solicitor, Councilwoman Winsley, a little, go over my question, but I want to really, commend you because from $869,379 in 2018 to 400,000 in 23, and it stayed the same for 24. That's really significantly a decrease. And that's really make a difference. So I want to commend you for that. And also keep doing what you're doing and try to find a better way to really decrease it. So that's good. That's good work. I want to mention that. I have another question about the settlement. So that's for me, it's like unpredictable. And also when you know what you have by now, what litigation you have, you can foresee maybe things that will happen. So when I see zero, that make me like, something just doesn't, right? So it's like you have nothing now, right? Even though, but you don't know what could happen from now on to, so you better be prepared proactively. So
Yeah, Councilwoman Jermaine, there, again, settlements are, I appreciate the kind words and I appreciate that. Like I said, it's kind of like a crystal ball, unfortunately. And we are trying to, my department, myself, Deputy Rawson, and the rest of my department, trying to keep track of the cases that, and I can't talk publicly, obviously, but the cases I know that are in my office and in a file and that are pending. And we do try to assign some kind of value to each of those cases. And I work, my department, not just myself, my department works hand in hand with Mr. Zadelis, Mr. Moretti and the administration to keep an eye on those potential liabilities to the city. And again, we've done a good job in cleaning them up. There are maybe one or two that are out there that kind of maybe we have our eye on, if you will. But as the council is aware, sometimes some things have picked up, and we've had to step forward on those. But I am trying to keep my eye on the settlement. So this, just so you know, that line item doesn't necessarily encompass everything that we're talking about because it's different departments.
okay.
Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, a little bit. My other question is, I think Council Winsley also talking about that it's office supplies and expensive. So I see a big, I don't know, discrepancies, I would say, for 3 prior years, 2018, 19, 20, it was 0. And then 2021, $77. And then the big jump in 2022 to $754. And then 2023, 0. So I'm like, what is going on in this line item here? And then for 24, it's 800. So I feel like
That, the only thing I can think of in 22, potentially, letterhead that was printed up, you know, maybe getting calculated within office supplies as opposed to administrative legal expenses, because they're kind of the same thing. If I need a few reams of letterhead and envelopes, it might have gone through the office expenses as opposed to supplies rather than legal expense. They're kind of one and the same. Councilwoman Jermaine, and they don't, you know, one could fit either item, and I think Mr. Zadelis could probably address that more properly, but I think that if I had to guess, that's probably what that is, business cards and so forth in 22, and then I haven't ordered any, so.
okay, yeah, you know, just like you have 3 years without nothing. And then a little bit, and then beam, and then nothing, and then beam, like, that's
Yeah,
just,
they just might have gone through the different other line items.
One account.
Or the other, they're kind of one and the same. Because in fairness, a legal expense to my office could be letterhead. It could also be calculated as office supplies, one or the other, it could go one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Moretti.
If I can underscore, Mr. Malay was a bit understated in what he's saying is relying upon legal work. Instead of going to the outside, he's relying a lot more, we believe, than in the past on our in-house people, those stipend individuals. He's been receiving a lot of pressure from the administration towards the budget, and he's done a great job in pushing himself and the members of his staff, his part-time staff, to do so, and versus just picking up the phone and calling friends and family to take care of things.
Thank you. That's really, this is good job.
Are there any remaining questions regarding the law department? Seeing none, are there any questions from members of the public? Seeing none, any questions from members of the public online?
There's no public comment.
All right, at this time, we'll move on to, I think it's insurance, claims and risk. Are there any questions from members of the committee regarding insurance claims and risk? Council President Marino?
Just a small question. Expenditure of 52312, the legal fees, outside services. So there's $10,000 there. Why wouldn't that just be incorporated in the law department as opposed to being here?
Madam Council President, that's the allocated amount that has been assigned to work directly for the Claims Committee, not something assigned by Attorney Malay. So similar to the question that was posed, as a matter of fact, Attorney Malay in his budget requested that his budget in and of itself had the settlement line item in his budget, not in claims. And we just didn't think that change was warranted with the submission of this budget. The same thing with the line item for legal services down with the Claims Committee. On a very limited basis, they do avail themselves to people working on claims. And we just assumed as a matter of practice that they were being paid out of there, so we continued that into the FY24 budget.
Practically speaking, how does that work then? Does the claims department, is it Gianna? I don't know her title. Does she contact a firm then to utilize the services? And that's why it's expended through
The claims.
the claims committee under that line item rather than going to the solicitor's office first?
Through the chair, it's my understanding that the individual attorney in his one has been doing work for the Claims Committee for a little while. So I think they do assign work based on the case before them, so it's as needed.
And that's more than one matter?
I apologize. The smaller claims, the mailboxes, the property damage stuff that comes regularly before the claims committee. That's reviewed, in my understanding, that's reviewed by Ms. Basso, and this line item compensates Ms. Basso for that work. If something continues on further through my office, she is compensated as well if it's something that gets to me.
And how is that billed? Is that a stipend basis, a monthly basis, a per case basis?
That I
What the
can't
agreement
answer. I
is.
don't know if it's a stipend.
Madam Council President, I believe it's an hourly fee because the bills I've seen vary from month to month, so I'm gonna assume it's on an hourly basis.
I'm good right now, thanks.
Councilwoman Renzulli.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I missed it, but so when we are in claims committee and we say send it to the solicitor's office, it doesn't actually go to the solicitor's office. It goes to this outside legal counsel.
That line item? That
When we have an issue in claims in which we do not want to vote on it, it's usually Attorney Videcchia is there, and we elect to send something to the solicitor's office to get reviewed beyond the capacity that we have within the room. So does that automatically go to this outside legal counsel that you just named? Or does it come to you to review?
My understanding is that the small matters that are reviewed by Ms. Basso, kind of like almost a stopgap to prevent it from getting to the solicitor's office and getting, these minor cases, let's just say a mailbox that's been knocked over by a city plow, okay? Reviewed, this case is we're liable, but this case is worth X. It's then paid out, and I guess Ms. Basso's paid out of that line item. If it's something that is not within the realm of claims, whether it be a larger amount is warranted, or there's a question of liability, or any number of legal issues, then it comes to my office, and then it's reviewed further, okay, before it gets to, and then there's obviously multiple steps before anyone can sue the city. They need to notify the council and so forth, but there are claims that are submitted to the solicitor's office that may or may not get court in the long run.
Okay, I guess my question, and excuse my ignorance, because I am not an attorney. Something like a mailbox, as your example, we settle that within the claims committee. We never send a mailbox to the solicitor. So I just don't understand why this person exists.
So, for instance, I remember an individual that had filed a claim for a mailbox, and I know that there's a standard procedure for this council to look at it and assign whatever value this council decides to assign to that type of damage. But the individual provided documentation and up to my office, because I ended up reviewing it, where the box, the value of the mailbox was far exceeding the value of the claim that was assigned by claims. It was a custom mailbox. This individual had the receipts, they had all the documentation to show what they paid for the mailbox. And liability was not an issue, or certainly wasn't a defense for the city. We mowed it down with a plow truck. That better? So a plow truck during a snowstorm had hit the box. Whether or not it was done, or could have been avoided is one, a separate conversation altogether. But the mailbox had been completely destroyed by a city plow truck. And so this goes back 2 years ago. It was reviewed by claims. I'm assuming by Ms. Basso at the time, and I'm not assigning anything, the claims committee decided it was worth X. And then that in turn ended up making it to my office because the individual was rejecting that offer that was made by claims. So it kind of is, it's a first step in a process.
Would it perhaps make sense to give you more control over that funding, that rather than send it to this outside attorney? Could just go to your office, you can decide if it needs this outside attorney, because we get a legal report every month, but we don't get that attorney on there as far as I know, so we don't know what their billing is. Director Zidella said they bill every month a different amount, which I am not claiming is wrong. We don't see it, so I would rather you have control over that than an outside counsel that we don't see what they're doing. That's
I mean,
just my opinion.
Yeah, it could certainly, what you're saying makes 100% sense, Leader Enzuli. The departments, I guess I could only request that they include me on any type of legal type of claim, because it does technically fall under the law department. Up until now, no, I have not, I don't necessarily receive that. It comes through finance and goes through Mr. Zizdella's office and Mr. Ivo. If the world was absolutely perfect, yes, it would be good if everything kind of came through my department, not from a control standpoint by any stretch of the imagination, but just much more to know what is being expended, the city expenditures that fall under legal. And those would include insurance claims. So that's all, just to keep everyone on the same page. I think that, but separate conversation.
So to answer your question directly is prior to payment, because what we're getting is at the back end from Attorney Basso, we can at the front end coordinate with the solicitor's office on charges being considered going out to the outside counsel before engaging that service, that service at the claims committee level.
Okay, I mean, that would satisfy me. I don't know about
Yes.
everyone else, but it just makes sense that it goes to the solicitor so they can monitor that, and perhaps for it to be included in the legal payments document that we get every month. I think that would maybe help with transparency and make everyone a little happier.
Councilman Ferry.
So I'm not exactly sure what the answer to this is going to be, but in 2021, the legal fees outside service was $168,612. How do we protect ourselves from that ever happening again?
I'm sorry, Counselor, could you?
In 2021, the legal line 52312. Legal fees outside service, it was $168,612. So how do we assure ourselves at a claims meeting when we're making recommendations to refer this to outside attorney or whatever it is that we vote on? How do we assure ourselves that we don't make a mistake and let that cost us $168,612 again? Because obviously it happened in 2021 before we were around.
Through the chair to the counselor, looking at that trend that we see, 21 was a spike. I don't know what's in the detail behind FY 21. So before I answer your question, let me go and see if that was not a misclassification on using that account. I can't say that, but that's something that warrants a response, that what exactly is in that 168, and I was not prepared for that type of question, but we can get that information rather easily, sir.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Rizzo.
To Councilman Ferry's point, I think that running everything through the solicitor's office could alleviate that problem. We won't be asking that question because we can ask the solicitor and he'll be able to answer it because he seems to have a firm grasp on what's happening in his own office.
If I may, procedurally, just getting them presenting it to the law department first, ensuring before anything's assigned out, because there are other things that, other types of cases that I can say it appears that Attorney Basso is working on, but I can say with no uncertain terms that we'll check before anything gets assigned out to Attorney Basso. We make sure that the law department is in the loop, and in terms of signing off on any payment to Attorney Basso, will ensure that the law department sees that bill is presented and approves those bills as well.
Thank you. Because is it presumptuous to believe that someone internally could perhaps do some of this work in the same way that you said we're trying to use in-house counsel? Or is it such a specific line of, legal professional services that we
No.
don't have anyone that can do it?
I don't think anyone is internally doing legal work, if that's the question. I think that's what you're getting to. No, I don't think that is, but I do think that it needs to be streamlined a little better, where departments that do have legal services being utilized, and I'm not criticizing the legal services by any stretch, but for instance, the law department, the library, I was unaware that they have outside legal counsel until it was raised at this meeting, to be quite frank with you. Okay. Claims I was aware of, when another example would be bond counsel. I have nothing to do with bond counsel, even though it's actually a legal service, and it's provided, but a lot of that is due to how they are paid. But it's still something that falls within the law department. And I feel as though I should at least be able to give you an answer in speaking with Mr. Zadelis and say, hey, what are we spending on X, or what was the, right? Because it doesn't fall under my department, so I'm unaware of that budget.
And does the council have to do anything to make that possible, Director Zadelis, or you have the authority to rework how this comes in?
In through the chair to the council, we've already started doing that. Finance in the law department. So that's a work in progress already, with the exception of a deeper dive in terms of claims committee. It's something we've been talking about in finance, about changing our procedures to loop the law department in instead of just having someone in finance review bills. So that was already a work in progress.
Excellent. Thank you.
Budget Officer.
Just one general question based on the current budget. We funded a one-time funds for the claims to clear up previous claims with opera funds of $1 million. And then we had the consistent budget number of 1.2 million. The current claims is running at about 1.1. Is it fair to assume or fair to say that at the end of this budget period that the claims fund balance will not be negative, it would at least be carrying some positive forward?
If we could sit down, if we could get you a projection, because as Attorney Malay was speaking to, they've compiled a list of claims against the city which have not been settled, which we are going through, looking at the potential liability affixed to every claim. So until we, you're asking for a projection, that's,
It was probably unfair to assume what the settlements would be. So I guess let me rephrase that. The $1 million that was funded, did that cover the previous claims from the fund balance? And going forward at this fiscal year, we started at zero? Thank you.
Councilwoman Jermaine.
Thank you, Chair. So looking at this, I had a lot of clarification I need. So when I look at line item 50751 city claims, okay? In city claims, so I would like, I'm still learning those things. In 2018, we have city claims 297,709. And then in 2021, he is decreased, but it's still 283. And then when we talk about city clean here, and then for 23, it's 2,500. So I'm taking two big numbers here, you know. And then for 24, it's projected 75,000. So I would like a little bit clarification. What happened? What is, like, when we say city claims, what it including the all department that has the line item when they have claims, or all the expensive that occurred within the city?
Of why the budget for FY 23 was allocated 2,500 for FY 23.
Mhm.
I can't answer that question, but if you indulge me for a minute, because in scurrying to try to find Attorney Basso's bill, I lost my claims. So in terms of a budget of 2,500 for city claims,
Mhm.
you are correct that for FY 23, that line item was budgeted for 2,500. But through February, with the supplemental information that I provided tonight and sent out, we have spent through February 34,000 for city claims. So the actual expense that we are experiencing this fiscal year is above the $2,500 that was budgeted. I can't speak to how that $2,500 dollars was derived, allocated, because it preceded my time.
Uh-huh.
But I can say with some certainty that the 75,000 is in line with what we're experiencing.
For now, based
Yes,
on
ma'am.
the
ma'am.
difference, okay. So that's like really catch my attention. That has a lot. I don't know what happened here, okay?
Yeah.
So my other question is, in the claimer outside, so we have city claims, we have claimer outside, so I mean that's, when we have claimer outside, that's people who we pay, right? So, this one in 2021.
Yeah.
We paid 300,
Seeing
300, yes. And in 22, 368. So we have a decrease in 23, but I see we increase it in 24. What make you have this increase of 5,000
and
for 24?
And what we were observing is, for that particular line item, the budget amount for FY 23 was 260,000. Through the end of February, we were already at 184,000. So that led to our projection to recommend reallocating 5,000 from a different line item up to that claims account. Because if I just may, between the 2 years, the bottom line is the exact same, $1.2 million being funded into the claims account. We just allocated 265,000 to the line outside claims based on what we were seeing in actual expenditures to date this fiscal year.
Yeah, okay, so now I have another question is, what is the difference between claim outside and settlement? Because I see here, I feel like it should be like, I don't know, the same or not. When claim outside the cost and then settlements in the same. Here, I'm like a little bit,
Through the chair to the council, the way I look at the difference is, these are predominantly, run through the claims committee. Everything else, settlements.
everything outside,
Yeah, settlements, is something I look at
the law department.
at the solicitor's level. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now that's come my question. We in the earlier in the law department solicitor's office, settlement was 0.
Yes, ma'am.
So here I see it's a 200. It was 267,500 for 23. And for 24, it's 200,000.
Yeah.
So my question here now is how the law department, when we have settlement here in the claim, how this is separate from the law department now?
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, so earlier in the law department, there was 0 for settlements.
Yes, ma'am.
So now we are in claim committee. So there is a settlement at 200,000.
Yep.
So my question is how we separate, is that the law department does not have oversee of this part? It's something separate, how they handle that here?
Through the chair to the counselor, the way I look at this particular account, the one line item that is 50757 settlements, is what is at Attorney Malay's avail, should he in his litany of cases choose to proceed with the settlement of a case. That is, for no better term, in my mind, proceeds that are assigned to, in this account, that are assigned to Attorney Malay in the law department. So if there is a large case, that's the funding source. As a matter of fact, I want to say sometime in the last month, there was a settlement of a case. It was, approximately 67,000. That's the account it was charged to. So although it appears in the claims and risk management, this particular line item is, for no better term, allocated to the law department in as a means to settle cases. It's just located in a different line
So-
item budget.
Okay, now my question is, I know when we have small, claim, we paid it out of the committee. And then when we have something that is big, we say, we send this
Send it
to
out.
solicitor office. How now, when it's like, I don't know, it's the procedure? Or if the law office has something like that is big, he come to this, I don't know,
Through the-
just enlighten me.
Through the chair and the counselor, in terms of what I will refer to as an appropriation, a budgeted line item that Attorney Malay would need to access to make a settlement. This particular line item, 200,000 for next year, is what he would have at his avail to settle one of his cases that, one of the suits against us.
Okay, not on his light
No,
item
no, ma'am.
budget, just,
And that
is
was,
that considered like the general?
yeah, and we thought it was gonna be, personally, I thought it was gonna be more confusing if we took 200,000 out of this account
Mhm.
and put it in the law department. We just consistently said, okay, for this year as a transition year with the new finance director,
Mhm.
this is the way it's worked. We're gonna keep it
Keep it that way.
this way, putting the, Attorney Malay's funding.
But
down in
for me,
claims.
it looks like for me, when I saw that zero in Attorney Mali like that, and for me, it's like, hey, we had a good year. We're not gonna have any settlement. So it's like you change it, you put it somewhere else. It's
Yeah,
not like
no.
we don't have it, but you have it
Never
somewhere
has.
else.
Well, can I just speak that? We did have a decent year, Councilwoman Jermaine. Just getting back to your point, it is in a different line item, but understanding that the city is a $330 million corporation, and the law department is approximately 0.2% of that. And I'm trying to keep it within that. And settlements can fluctuate, unfortunately, but that settlement amount is something that, while it appears that, not appears, it's in a different section of the budget. As Mr. Zadella said, had spoken to Councilwoman Renzulli about, Mr. Zadelis and I have been discussing this for about 2 months at this point,
Mhm.
about how to properly not fund and not keep track, because it's easily right there, but have an idea as to where the city settlements are and where they can be forecast for the
Mhm.
next fiscal year. Because there's settlements, obviously, there's that line item within my department, and there's the line item that you just referenced properly
Yeah,
in the claims department, and then there's outside claims, and then so there are different line items that fall technically within the law department, but are elsewhere. So I
okay,
hope that helps you, Councilwoman.
okay. So in 2020, this settlement was $574,976. That's a lot of money, right? So from 22, and we decrease and we come, so do you think 200 is enough?
Can I let, I'm gonna let Council Budgeter, DeMayo.
Okay,
Just to try to simplify this, the city is self-insured. We cannot quantify our claims by a deductible. So in years that we have no claims, there's less money expenditures. The years that we have more claims, there's more money expenditures. They're, to the best of their knowledge, they're making their best estimate on what they feel, what claims are in-house will be paid.
Mhm.
But it's never going to be a true assessment.
okay,
One year we could have 500,000, one year we could have 50,000. It's just based on the chance that happens during that period.
so we practically rolling based on chances.
It's basically, you want to say it, it's just the odds. They
Okay,
do their best estimate going forward and that's it, because we really cannot quantify it. There's
Okay.
no formula that would work.
okay, thank you. My last question is about, that's something that is eliminated, so I would like to know just the narrative behind it. So probably the question might be answered before, but salary schedule 51110. So I see 2018, we had this $86,000, but it has been zero for all those years. What explained that? I know.
Through the chair to the counselor, I'm going to make an assumption. I don't like doing this, but back in 2018, there was a body assigned to the claims committee. That's all because if you notice,
Mhm.
not only is there a dollar value for salaries, but they're all withholdings,
Mhm.
payroll withholdings. So I'm gonna make an assumption back in 2018, there was a physical body, staff member, lawyer, I don't know, assigned a claims committee, but that's an assumption based on what I'm seeing there.
So
And
that's
since that
now
point in
we,
time, they have not.
so now we have no one is signed up.
If I recall going back, I believe at the time what had happened is that the claims were segregated and then removed under the finance department. And the person who was in claims split the job between helping the director of finance and the claims. I think it was just a unilateral move to utilize that person in a different department.
Okay,
I vaguely remember the girl's name was Anna that moved and then now Gianna has the position and she falls under finance. So it was just a reallocation into a different department.
Thank you so much for the enlightenment, and I'm done.
I'll be quick. I feel obligated to go back to Mr. DeMayo's question about, I believe you had the question about that inherited claim shortfall where we caught up. I gave you a simple answer, said, yes, I stand by that. I'll stand by that more like in an accounting sense. As you know, for any claims that may be reasonably estimated and probable of occurring, the answer is yes. So whatever, you don't know what arises in the future, but from an accounting sense, the answer is yes, that way the books are properly reflected.
The only main reason for the question, because I'll probably ask it with the other one-time funding, is to show that this administration rectified issues that were carried forward. And now we're going forward with a clean slate. And now we're dealing with what's in the budget, not what's coming from the past.
That was a known deficit that we filled. Yeah, if there's any carryover claims that all of a sudden became probable and reasonably estimated, that number could be short based on occurrences prior to this date, but we caught up that reserve to that's accounting standard.
And the reason for the question is strictly because of the audit issues that came up. And that was one of the things that was probably concerned going forward and getting things done timely was those two items. Thank you.
All right, we're good. Council President.
I just had a quick question about the insurance premiums and claims on 50753 and 50754. Particularly the insurance premium for buildings, properties, that's tracking high. And there's an increase there. And my question is, when are we paying the premium? Like, when is the policy, fall in the year? And is that affecting the number? Because I would assume it's a set policy, what
Yes,
the cost
it
is.
is.
So it's when you initially begin the policy that you know what the price is going to be. And so it should be predictable. And I'm kind of confused as to why it doesn't match up.
Again, through the chair to the council president. The October I came back. November, in the month of November, we got quotes in for building insurance for and I don't remember the term of the policy period, but I can say that the quotes came in and were due immediately in terms of the building insurance, which you're predominantly looking at on the account 50754. And I cannot remember if that period runs on a fiscal year basis. I don't think it does, but it's an annual premium. And our claims experience, we had bad claims experience for two issues. One was a flood and one involved the ice rink with the bubble. So those two incidents weighed in with the actuaries on our claims experience, which constituted the large increase in premium between year to year. It's an annual premium. Through the chair to the council president. Yes, it's an annual premium. And I can get you the term date, but it is an annual premium. $507, I'm sorry, Madam. Ma'am, Madam Council President, if I may get you that one back simultaneously when I get you the.
Thanks, I'm good.
All right, seeing any last questions regarding insurance claims and risk? Seeing none, no members in the public. Are there any members online?
There is no public comment.
All right, at this time, we're gonna close the evening with group 1104, Department of Personnel. We'll open up the floor. Does any members of the committee have any questions? All right, see, Council
Yep.
President.
Yep, okay, for Department of Personnel, I had a question with respect to the part-time help. Is that include the greeter more or less in City Hall?
Through the chair to the counselor, yes, it does.
And then the other part-time person, what is that role for?
That's augmenting HR personnel type issues down within the department. So there are two part-time positions assigned to this budgeted line item. As you said, the greeter and yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase it. The greeter slash security and a part-time person augmenting tasks in the personnel department.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, the two part-time positions listed in the personnel expenditures, one is the greeter, and the other is someone who is actually being of assistance, the job duties entail being of assistance within the personnel department. Am I understanding that correct?
Through the chair to the council president, that's correct.
Okay, and I know there was mentioned the other position being the greeter, is, backslash security, or part security you had mentioned, but let's make sure we're all on the same page. We have a person under personnel that's just a greeter, and then we have separate and apart from that part-time person, an actual police officer that is not part of this personnel budget. That's actual security. Am I correct?
Through the chair to the counselor, the police officer assigned to City Hall that you see intermittently is not in this budget. That's a correct statement.
And just to be clear, because I think it's a good attribute to have a police officer at that position in City Hall. I'm just not sold on the greeter aspect under a tight budget, but we can differ on that. So thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood the duties.
Yeah, but if I may, in terms of monitoring the cameras in the work that's done by the police officer, whether it be the police officer has a day off or there's a multitude of reasons to backfill, the greeter slash security. But yes, it's more than, there are functions including watching the cameras that the part-time person does do in the absence of the police officer.
But does the part-time person actually leave their like cubby area and go to the actual desk with the cameras? Because the cameras are only located in one area, correct?
No, the actual, you can watch the cameras from any system that potentially has it, so. Does he sit in the station in the middle of the first floor? No, that person is got a fixed post in a desk off to the side office.
Okay, so for the security cameras, the access is not required just by sitting at the desk. Someone can have remote access.
Through the chair, in terms of cameras, I could have it down in my office if I wanted it, if they were given.
Okay, but I'm not asking hypothetical. I'm actually asking
Does that
factually
person have-
specifically, the part-time personnel person that we're paying. Again, not talking about the police officer,
Yes,
which
ma'am.
I understand the need and respect the need for that. I'm talking about the part-time person. Does that person have cameras in their office? And if I understood correctly,
Computer.
they just have a
I-
computer that has access to the
I believe,
cameras.
I
Okay.
believe that person does, but let me verify that.
I could verify they have monitors, just as the officer, outside, watching the cameras.
All right, I don't see any other, Councilwoman Renzulli.
Thank you. I just have a question with the increase in the salary schedule. I only see two people listed in personnel, so who got an increase? Or did that move from, the difference that went down in part-time help? It seems like same amount went up in the salary schedule, so is that what happened?
What it is less reliance. There was, first of all, as you see, it's a $420 department increase of 0.2%. So realizing the savings from that part-time help, and making the rate for the clerk, given the confidential nature of that position, to be of a clerk, senior clerk type level. Before it was just a ridiculous pay.
Okay, so that
Not
went
not
to
commensurate to
the confidential
responsibility.
assistant was, yeah, obviously getting paid in like the 30,000 something range is really low. So is that what happened? The
Yes.
47,000 that took an increase, but it only came from the part-time line essentially. So there was really no increase overall. It just got that was a better
Reallocation,
pay.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions. Last call. All right, any members of the public? Seeing none, any members of the public online?
There's no public comment.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye, aye,
We
aye.
are adjourned. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m.